Alright, let's talk about the revolve tool. So this is a really cool tool if you've never seen it or never used it before. We're going to start by making just a regular part like we would usually. And just like when we make an extrusion or we extrude a part, we have to start similarly with a 2D sketch. So with this, I'm just going to make a very basic shape. The important thing about the revolve tool is whatever you're making most of the time needs to be a closed shape. So if I filled this up with water, it wouldn't leak anywhere. There's no holes or gaps anywhere. It's a closed object or closed shape. So when I take this and I finish the sketch, when I extrude, it only extrudes along like a central axis. It extrudes either one direction or the other, or a mixture of the two. But when we revolve an object, you have selected the same profile, but instead of selecting a direction linearly that you want it to go, you're going to rotate it around an axis like the central one there. So with that, you get a shape kind of like a little cone, like a traffic cone. You could also rotate it around a different axis and it will give you a different shape, and you can kind of play around with what that would look like. So it's revolving around that axis. It's taking that and it's almost sweeping it around that axis. You can take that and make it something a little bit more complicated if you'd like. You can make it for things that are typically made or machined on like a lathe, which is a tool that spins really fast and usually makes things like a baseball bat or a candlestick or the leg of a table. That's what a lathe is typically used for. But you can make something like this. I'm just kind of being creative. So something like this, remember, it has to be a closed shape. If you need to, if you're making a shape that's all the way out in the middle of nowhere, you may have to create a separate line in order to establish a rotating point. So you could use this to make a little candlestick or something like that. You could also take this shape if you wanted to not use this central line to rotate it around. You could come in here and you could make a different axis, a separate or detached axis. I'm going to have to come in here and I'm going to have to right click and make it a construction line. I don't want it to be used in the sketch as just a reference line. So instead of me using this as my central rotating axis, if I click this axis, then I get a completely different shape. It's now taking that profile here and it's rotating it around this axis, so it gives me a completely different shape than if I use the line that's in the sketch. So that's kind of the 101 basics of the revolve tool. Play around with it and see if you can make something really cool.